After the release, when the tension has passed, our minds are still racing, but what are we really thinking? There's more to what happens after than we realize. In that silence, your true emotions might finally speak. What are you feeling when the night quiets down? Is it the peace you expected or the chaos you were avoiding? We always talk about the act, but what about the aftermath? What does the quiet after truly reveal? Do we avoid the thoughts that come after? The emotions that rise in the silence are often the ones we most need to confront. What's left when the passion fades? The real emotions come to light in those moments we often ignore. In the aftermath, our hearts and minds begin to speak, but do we hear them or do we push them away? The moments after intimacy, do we dare to listen to what our hearts are truly saying, or do we let silence speak for us? In those precious seconds after passion, we are faced with something we can't always control: our emotions. It's in the quiet after intimacy that the real revelations begin. But are we ready to face what we truly feel? The true meaning of connection often comes not in the act, but in the silence that follows. What do we feel, really? The silence after intimacy holds the most raw truths. What emotions are you truly hiding, and why? In the stillness after passion, there's a truth we often overlook. What if it's that silence that reveals our deepest desires? What are we really thinking when everything quiets down? In the silence, your true emotions come forward, unmasked. The words we leave unsaid can be the loudest. What if the silence after intimacy is where we finally hear the truth? In the quiet after intimacy, the emotions we try to suppress come rushing forward. Are we ready to face them? The silence feels like a test. What happens when we stop pretending everything's fine after the passion fades? After everything's over, we're left alone with our thoughts. What do we feel, and why do we never say it? What if the most powerful part of intimacy isn't the touch, but the raw honesty in the moments that follow? The silence after passion can either soothe or haunt us. What does it reveal about our true desires? In the aftermath, everything feels magnified. The thoughts we usually avoid seem to come alive in that stillness. When the intensity fades, the reality sets in. What emotions do we truly feel when no one is looking? After the storm, there's a calm, but what's lurking beneath the surface? The unspoken emotions we're too afraid to confront. What do we feel in those quiet moments? The ones where we try to understand what just happened, but words escape us. In the stillness, our heart speaks louder than ever before. but are we listening to its message? Sometimes what we feel after intimacy is far more important than what we felt during. Why do we never talk about it? What happens when the passion fades and we're left in the silence? It's in those moments that the truth begins to surface. After intimacy, we often bury our feelings under layers of distractions. What would happen if we truly faced them? Do we dare to acknowledge the emotions that arise after passion? The things we're too afraid to confront are often the most real. The quiet after can be the most intense. What's truly going through your mind when everything else is still? When the rush of emotions calms, we're left with only one thing: truth. What does your heart want to say in that silence? After the touch, the quiet reveals everything. What do we truly feel, and why do we hide it from each other? The silence speaks volumes. Do we hear what it's saying, or do we push it away in fear of what we'll find? What happens when the passion is gone? The silence reveals the rawest feelings we've been too afraid to speak aloud. After the connection fades, the truth about what we really want comes to light. But do we acknowledge it? The quiet after intimacy is where the rawest emotions live. Are we brave enough to feel them? After everything has settled, the mind races with thoughts we never shared. What are we truly thinking when no one is around? In the moments after, when the adrenaline fades, what do we feel? The truth is often hidden in the silence. When passion fades, we're left to face something much deeper: our true emotions. Are we ready to confront them? After the physical release, there's something else waiting in the stillness. What does your heart reveal when everything is quiet? After everything fades away, what truly lingers in our minds? The moments we don't speak about, but feel deep within our souls. It's not just the physical closeness, it's the unsaid words that echo in the silence after intimacy. Do you ever wonder if the thoughts you're hiding are the ones that matter the most? In the quiet aftermath, when the world feels distant, what's left unsaid speaks louder than words. There's a vulnerability after intimacy, a space where feelings swirl, hidden beneath the surface. The silence after the passion ends. What are we really feeling? It's not always what we expect. When the lights go out and the night wraps itself around you, that's when the real thoughts come alive. What if everything you thought you felt wasn't truly what you were feeling? It's the quiet moments that reveal the truth. There's more to the aftermath than the obvious. It's in those hushed seconds where everything shifts. Do we ever fully understand what happens after the moment? The emotions, the complexities, the things we never say. After the rush of passion, when everything stills, what's happening inside? The things we don't say matter more than we think. The space between what's said and what's felt is where the truth lies, raw, unspoken, waiting to be understood. When the heat fades, the questions start. What are you really feeling, and why don't you say it? We all know the physical release, but what about the emotional one? The unspoken words that float in the air. After the passion has simmered down, what thoughts haunt you in the quiet that follows? That moment after, where silence reigns. What's going through your mind when the world seems to stop? The lingering emotions we don't talk about are often the most powerful ones. Are we brave enough to face them? What if the real connection lies not in what we do, but in the stillness after, the space where vulnerability lives? In the aftermath, when everything is quiet, you're left alone with your thoughts. What do you really feel? What's the first thought that crosses your mind when everything has settled? That's when the real conversation begins. After the passion, the heart speaks louder than ever before. But what is it saying, and why don't we listen? There's more in that post-intimacy silence than meets the eye. It holds the weight of everything unsaid. What do we truly feel when everything has come and gone? What emotions stir when no one is speaking? The space between desire and silence can reveal more than we're ready to face. What are we really hiding? It's in those quiet moments after intimacy that the heart often reveals what it's too afraid to say out loud. Sometimes, the silence after is more telling than the act itself. Do we listen closely enough? When the body rests, the mind is just beginning to work through everything that's left unsaid. Do you feel the weight of the silence, or is it just a fleeting thought? What happens after the passion fades? We don't always talk about the quiet aftermath, but it's where emotions, both deep and unspoken, take center stage. In that stillness, something profound is happening. What if it's not the passion, but the silence after that defines the moment? In the moments of stillness that follow, the heart often speaks louder than any words ever could. What happens when we stop pretending everything's fine after the passion? Is it vulnerability, fear, or something more? That lingering silence, what does it really mean? The feelings that rise in the quiet after often go unnoticed. What if the real connection happens in the silence? The space where thoughts begin to swirl and emotions stir. What do you think about when everything is over? The quiet can reveal so much more than we realize. Sometimes the things we don't say after intimacy are the ones that shape us the most. But why are we afraid to say them? When it's all over, why does the silence feel so heavy? What are we really thinking when no one is talking? The space between moments holds a truth we rarely acknowledge, the feelings we don't want to admit to ourselves. After the storm of passion, there's a calm. But what does that calm reveal about us? What are we hiding? The silence after intimacy isn't empty. It's filled with thoughts and feelings we've yet to face. Is it possible that we're afraid of what we feel after? That silence might be louder than any conversation? What's really happening in your heart when everything settles? The emotions in that silence are everything we've been avoiding. What if the moments of stillness hold the deepest truths we're afraid to confront? The silence can be deafening. In those quiet, still moments, the emotions that we've been holding in come to the surface, ready or not. When the passion dies down, the thoughts that remain can be overwhelming. Do we dare to confront them?